We see the protagonist, Yayoi, chasing after the bus at the start of the movie. When the vehicle stops, Yayoi enters, greets her good friend Sakura, then proceeds to scold Yamada for quitting the school's soccer team. Yamada is a promising athlete, but his overconfidence may prove to be his downfall. He feels embarrassed and annoyed that Yayoi calls out his arrogance, pointing out that Sakura is always worried about him. Yamada couldn't care less about Sakura, Yayoi, or anything else, as he thinks that his quitting is the soccer team's loss. However, his perspective changes when he witnesses Yayoi's fierce loyalty towards Sakura. Yayoi defends Sakura, who has been the subject of malicious rumors spread by her tormentors. She explains that Sakura's illness is caused by a tainted blood product, and not from doing indecent activities. Yayoi reproaches the perpetrators who wrote derogatory words about Sakura, which makes Sakura feel grateful. Yamada witnesses this incident, and perhaps this is when he starts feeling something for Yayoi. Soon, Sakura gets hospitalized. Yayoi makes sure to visit her as much as she can. She encourages Sakura to confess her true feelings for Yamada, but Sakura is too shy to do it. On the other hand, Sakura feels warm and appreciative to see Yayoi and Yamada making an effort to make her feel better. She lets them know her confidence in knowing that they will become amazing adults. As her last words, she tells them to never change. Being someone who is headstrong and never gives up, Yayoi says they will honor Sakura's wish if she gets to graduate with them next year. However, that doesn't happen, as Sakura passes away soon after. Her parents are the ones who attended the graduation ceremony and have requested to play their daughter's favorite song for the last time. After the ceremony, Yayoi and Yamada walk home, talking about their prospects in life. Upon reaching the sakura tree that marks a crossroad, Yamada makes a proposal. If Yayoi is still single by the age of 40, he's going to marry her. Yayoi laughs at this, reminding him he should think about himself first. 8 years later, we see that Yamada is the first one who gets married. His bride carries their 1-year-old baby as they greet their guests, which includes Yayoi. As always, Yayoi expresses her concern for Yamada, who's already tipsy. She asks him about his prospects of being a professional soccer player. The season's league has started, but Yamada is still waiting to be included in a team. As always, he's overconfident in saying he'll soon get to play in the World Cup. Then he asks Yayoi when she'll get married. She solemnly says she may never do so at all. In the next scene, we see her visiting Sakura's grave. There, she finally admits she has feelings for Yamada, which is why she thinks she'll never marry. On the other hand, she's finally acquired the teaching license she's always aimed for. Yayoi doesn't know that Yamada has always had feelings for her. In truth, he was about to tell her before he got married. But his then-girlfriend bearing his child, and Yayoi moving to Tokyo for her studies, had prevented him from doing so. Years later, his repressed feelings had made Yamada feel lonely. He continues to brag to his son, Ayumu, that he's going to be a great soccer player, even though he's still waiting to be included in the professional league. But fate has other plans for him. While playing with his son, Yamada receives a call from his coach, informing him that his contract won't be renewed for the next season. Distracted by this disappointing news, Yamada doesn't notice that Ayumu has run after the ball that's rolled towards the street. Yamada sees his son just in time. He manages to save Ayumu, but at the price of one of his legs. Yamada develops a limp, ending whatever aspirations he has for being a professional athlete. After this unfortunate incident, his wife divorces him. Yamada visits Sakura's grave and lets out his frustrations and misery over what his life has become. As if to add more to his suffering, Yamada sees Yayoi walking towards the grave, followed by a man. Yamada hides, not wanting to show his face to his friend. Through eavesdropping, he learns that the man Yayoi is with, whose name is Shirai, is her fiancé, and they are about to get married. Yamada can't help but compare his life to Yayoi's successful one, and feels miserable. He walks away quietly. Yayoi does her best to balance several things in her life. Shirai reminds her of her filial responsibility to her father. Reluctantly, Yayoi takes charge of taking care of him, even though he caused her so much suffering before. In addition to this, she's worried about Yamada, who hasn't contacted her for a long time. Yayoi visits the small restaurant that Yamada's mother manages. There, Mrs. Yamada greets her cordially. Mrs. Yamada knows and likes Yayoi. In fact, she once said that it would have been better if her son married Yayoi. From her, Yayoi learns that Yamada has withdrawn from society and is on the verge of becoming a recluse. Yayoi refuses to accept this, so she barges into his apartment and chides him for his inaction. Yamada looks pitiful. His unkempt hair and messy apartment all point to the fact that he's lost his purpose in life. He thinks of himself as a loser who's never achieved anything in his life. For Yayoi, this behavior is unbecoming of Yamada. She forces him to change into clean clothes. Then, she almost drags him to the school where Ayumu is studying. She believes that a reconciliation between father and son will revive Yamada's confidence. Yayoi takes a soccer ball from a kid playing nearby and initiates a simple, pass-the-ball game between Yamada and Ayumu. At first, things are awkward, but Yamada takes the first step and greets his son. He expresses regret for being absent in Ayumu's life and apologizes for not being a good father to him. Yamada's sincerity moves Ayumu. Thankfully, he's not completely indifferent to his pitiful father. Later, as they wait for Yayoi's train to arrive, Yayoi reminds Yamada to keep his promise to meet his son often. Yamada nods. He tells Yayoi she's amazing for helping him mend his relationship with his son and for reaching out to help him. Soon, the train arrives and Yayoi steps in. Yamada thinks this might be his last chance. Before the door closes, he pulls Yayoi out and hugs her tight. He's always wanted to do this, not out of gratitude, but out of unfulfilled love that he's kept inside him throughout the years. Yayoi allows herself to feel his body against her, as her suppressed love for him surfaces. The night ends with the two of them embracing passionately inside Yamada's apartment. For a couple of hours, they let their emotions rule them as they made love with each other. Early the next day, Yayoi leaves Yamada's apartment. She's filled with guilt as she realizes she's committed a grave sin. She calls Shirai and makes some excuses to let him know she's okay. But she senses that her husband doesn't buy her excuse, and her strict principles won't allow her to lie to herself that everything's okay between them. But for that day, Yayoi prioritizes her job. She goes straight to the school where she teaches. Although she does her best to appear as normal as possible, there are moments when she spaces out. Her mind goes back to when Yamada hugged her tight and the passion that it ignited. The day would have been ordinary, just like any other. But a tragedy strikes the whole nation. A magnitude 9 earthquake hits Japan, affecting the eastern coast and causing large tsunamis. It was the deadliest earthquake to hit the country, bringing about great devastation, especially in the coastal area. Government agencies try to warn the citizens of the aftershocks and incoming tsunamis and give updates on the situation of the affected areas. As Yamada listens to the news, his first thought is about Yayoi's safety. He tries to contact her, but he receives no response, likely due to signal towers affected by the natural phenomenon. Yamada's only choice is to drive where Yayoi is to make sure she's safe. As expected, everything's in great turmoil. He can't get past the traffic caused by evacuating citizens. It would be a couple of hours before he'll arrive at the coastal area where his mother's restaurant is located. The whole place has been ravaged by the tsunami. It's understandable to think nothing is left. Thankfully, Mrs. Yamada is safe. Upon seeing her son, she feels relieved to know that he's okay. Although everything has been swept away, she has great hopes of starting again as long as they live. When she looks at her son, she immediately understands that he's looking for Yayoi. She shares with him what she knows. After evacuating her students to higher ground, Yayoi returned to her house to look for her husband. Since then, Mrs. Yamada has had no more news about Yayoi. Yamada visits several evacuation centers to look for Yayoi. He relentlessly asks survivors about Shirai Yayoi or Yuki Yayoi if anyone happens to know her maiden name. Many people either have no idea who she is or couldn't care less about her. When Yamada visits a hospital, he meets Yayoi's father, who miraculously was saved from the tragedy. Even in his disabled state, the father's disdain for his daughter is palpable. He still blames Yayoi for his ruined life. We see a flashback that shows us why the father feels this way towards his daughter. Back when Yayoi was still studying to be a teacher, her father had signed her into an arranged marriage without her consent. Yayoi only found out about this when she returned home one day and saw her family packing their things away, while most of their valuables had been seized by the bank. Apparently, her father failed to pay his debts to the loan sharks. The only way he could get out of this mess was to marry Yayoi off to the son of a college friend, who was a bank manager. Yayoi was indignant that her father shamelessly wanted his in-laws to pay for his debts through her marriage. Against her will, she relented. On her wedding day, Yamada visited her to remind her that this wasn't who she was. He told her he'd follow his dreams and marry the woman he loves, because that was what Sakura would want for him, and for her too. Yayoi was already having second thoughts, but she convinced herself she was doing the right thing for her family. However, Sakura's favorite music was accidentally played instead of the wedding march. And when Yayoi started walking down the aisle, she knew then this wasn't what she wanted for her life. So she announced to everyone that the wedding wouldn't push through. Yamada supported her by restraining her father. Yayoi ran outside, towards her freedom. Back to the present, Yamada continues his search for his friend. but it's his mother who tells him where Yayoi is. Yayoi is one of the gyms turned into a temporary morgue, kneeling in front of a coffin. Shirai unfortunately passed away during the earthquake. His remains were found buried under the rubble because he tried to save the neighbor's child. Yayoi adds that Shirai's parents blame her for their son's demise. Yayoi wanted to teach near the coastal area instead of staying in Tokyo as Shirai had wanted. Yayoi feels immense guilt. The truth is that she wants to stay there to be close to Yamada. And now, she's lost her husband, who's only ever kind and understanding to her. Right there and then, Yayoi decides to quit teaching. Then she tells Yamada they should stop seeing each other. Her guilt over her one-time affair and her broken promise to Sakura for failing to become an amazing person are making her suffer. She feels she doesn't deserve to live the peaceful life she dreamed of. Yamada persuades her not to think that way. None of these is her fault, but Yayoi has already set her mind. And when she does, nothing can ever change it. Yayoi starts to live a solitary life. The once confident woman now looks down, never daring to look people in the eye. Over the years, Yamada still tries to get her out of her isolation, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Yamada has managed to turn his life around. He's now a soccer coach in a school. He may not be the professional athlete he initially aspired to be, but his skills are still there, and he wants to share them with those with the same dream. He's made a good start in life, thanks to Yayoi, who helped him in his lowest time. He wants to return the favor, so he's been hoping she'd return his calls. But Yayoi remains lonely. She continues to care for her father. Until the end of his life, he blames Yayoi for everything. He even calls her the canary who forgot how to sing. After the father passes away, Yayoi visits Sakura's grave. She apologizes, as she says she may not come here anymore. Then she hears a familiar voice. Yamada is walking in her direction, but he doesn't see her. Yayoi hides, not wanting to see him. She overhears his prayers and his wish to Sakura that she may look after Yayoi, who still refuses to communicate with him. In school, Yamada meets with his son Ayumu, who has just gotten his teaching license. Yamada feels proud. Their broken relationship has been fixed through years of effort and communication. It is then that Ayumu reveals he was inspired by Yayoi to be a teacher. Yamada says he doesn't know where she is now, and he may never see her again. But this is not the end of their story. It's as if someone from the heavens is looking after them. One day, Yamada receives a call from Sakura's father. He says he sent Yayoi a package in Tokyo, but no one received it. It is a tape that contains Sakura's last recorded message before she passed away. She requested her father to deliver it when Yayoi and Yamada got married. Since Yayoi never received it, the father thinks Yamada should get it. Yamada realizes this is his last chance to see Yayoi. So he looks for her all over Tokyo. His search proves that once Yayoi decides she doesn't want to be found, she won't be found. But perhaps Sakura from the heavens is done with her best friend sulking. Yamada finds Yayoi in a bookstore, right when he picks up Sakura's favorite book. Although Yayoi runs away, Yamada manages to follow her and give her the tape recording. Yayoi initially doesn't want to listen to it. Her guilt and shame are too much even to hear Sakura's recorded voice. In the end, she relents. Yayoi finds out that Sakura had always known that Yayoi and Yamada have feelings for each other, but they're holding it back because of her. Sakura recounts how her life was easier to live despite her illness, and that's because of Yamada's bright smile and Yayoi's unwavering loyalty. Sakura's gentle voice reminds Yayoi that her friend once dreamed of getting older, having wrinkles, and experiencing back pain. To meet people and fall in love. To live life, which is something that Yayoi has thrown away because of her mistakes. It's this recorded message that allows Yayoi to forgive herself for her shortcomings. She feels saved and grateful that Sakura still looks after her, even from the afterlife. At last, Yayoi decides to meet with Yamada again. She runs after the bus where he got in, reminiscent of the start of the movie. Yamada asks the driver to stop the vehicle so Yayoi can get in. There, Yayoi finds out about Ayumu becoming a teacher in their alma mater. Yamada is going there to support his son. Apparently, Ayumu reprimanded some students who were tormenting their classmates, but the parents didn't like their children getting scolded. When Yayoi and Yamada get there, they witness Ayumu standing his ground, saying it's his duty as a teacher to stop his students' wrongdoings, to help them become better people instead of causing grief to others. One student starts chanting that Ayumu should resign, and the others follow, much to the satisfaction of the parents. Yamada is about to step forward, but Yayoi stops him. Ayumu will only get in more trouble if his father chimes in, and so, Yayoi steps forward and orders the students to keep quiet. She points out their shamelessness for conducting this modern witch trial. Yayoi remains steadfast in supporting Ayumu, saying that teachers should be the ones to understand their duties of teaching their students the important lessons in life. At the back of the classroom, Yamada can't help but smile. There's the Yayoi he's fallen in love with. At the end of the movie, Yayoi and Yamada visit Sakura's grave together. When Yamada reaches for Yayoi's hand, she doesn't pull away. He lets her know that he loves her. Yayoi smiles, as she's finally allowing herself to live and to start a new life with Yamada.